this NextAuth v5 tutorial, we're going to cover database adapters, or how you can connect NextAuth to whatever database you're using. Because as it says here, database adapters are the bridge we use to connect Auth.js and NextAuth as kind of reformatted to Auth.js, but the adapters connect Auth.js to your database. For instance, when implementing magic links, email providers, it may require you to set up database adapter to be able to store the verification tokens present on the links. So this is basically how you can connect your database to NextAuth, which I think is going to be a very common use case. Now, if you haven't seen my first video where we go over installation, authentication using OAuth, as well as session management in NextAuth, I would definitely recommend checking that out. That was my last video I did, so that's available for you to check out if you haven't seen it already. But we're going to build off that video and implement a database adapter for NextAuth. Now, we're going to use Supabase here today, but I've looked through a handful of these, and it seems like it's a pretty similar process to connect to really any of these. So I think that by learning how it works with connecting Supabase, it will help you kind of connect any of the other ones that you might be using. Now, we are going to be using the code or the starter code from this project right here, NextAuth v5. This is what we did in my previous video. So you can go ahead and, if you didn't already do this, you can git clone this and then npm install and then npm run dev, and you should have everything ready to go as kind of the starter project for this tutorial here. Let's go ahead and head back to the Auth.js docs, and I'm going to click on Supabase. And it is a fairly straightforward process here. So I'm going to zoom in here a little bit. And the first thing we need to install is Supabase, Supabase.js, and an Auth Supabase adapter. So I'm going to copy this line of code. I'm going to head over to VS Code, and this is the starter project right here. And what I'm going to do is run npm install those packages. And then after installing those, what we need to do next is we need to set up environment variables. So this is basically going to connect Supabase to our project. So we should head over to Supabase right now. And this is just at supabase.com. Now, I already have an account. It is free to create an account, so feel free to go ahead and create an account if you're following along. But after creating an account, go ahead and click on Dashboard. And then from here, I'm going to click New Project. And I'm going to choose my Code Ryan Solomon organization. And I'm going to title this Next-Auth v5. And I'm going to type in a password. And then I'm going to click Create a New Project. And just select whatever region is closest to you as well. This new project is creating here. And it's going to give us some different keys here, which we're going to need to use. So looking at the Auth.js docs, we need to set these two environment variables. So I'm going to copy these, head over to VS Code, go to my .env.local file here within the root of my project, and then I'm going to paste both of these auth secrets here. And now I'm going to go to Supabase, and I'm going to get the Supabase URL as well as the Supabase service role key. So if I come back to Supabase, I can see the service role secret right here. I'm going to click reveal and copy, and I'm going to paste the Supabase service role key within VS Code. And now we just need the Supabase URL. So it looks like our project is all done creating here. But if I scroll down, I see the project URL right here, and I'm going to copy this. Now, I'm probably just going to delete this Supabase project once I get done with this. So I'm probably not hiding these particular keys, but let me head back to VS Code after copying this project URL, and then I will paste that as my env key for Supabase URL. And then I'll save and close that .env.local file. And now let's head back to Auth.js, and we need to adjust our auth.js configuration. So we've already set our providers where we set up GitHub here, but now we need to set up an adapter. And this is going to be like a connection between auth.js and Supabase. And we need to set the URL and the secret to our .env Supabase URL and our .env Supabase service role key. So I'm going to copy this part right here, head back to VS Code, and we need to go to the auth.js file below my providers property and array here. I'm going to set an adapters property, and I'm going to point that to this Supabase adapter function that we need to import from Supabase adapter. So @auth /Supabase adapter, import the Supabase adapter function. And then from here, we're setting the URL and the secret to the Supabase URL and Supabase service role key that we just set in our .env.local file. So this will effectively connect NextAuth to Supabase. And then from here, we need to set up our database as described in their main schema by copying the SQL schema below in the Supabase SQL editor. Alternatively, we could do a couple of different things, but we are going to go ahead and copy this, paste it in the Supabase SQL editor, and then we're going to run it. So this is basically setting up all of the tables that NextAuth expects there to be to basically set users within our database and to kind of use session tokens and all the stuff that you can see here. You can, of course, read through all this. Basically, this is going to allow our Supabase tables to be in line with what NextAuth expects. So I'm going to copy this, and I would definitely recommend you just heading to this auth.js, getting started adapter Supabase, and copying this as well. That's going to be much easier than trying to type all this out. So after copying, I'm going to head over to Supabase, and I'm going to click on SQL Editor here over on the left. And then all I'm going to do is paste this SQL within the SQL Editor, and then I'm going to click Run. And after running, you should see success, no rows returned. And then I'm going to head back to the auth.js docs, scroll down, and I believe we just need to expose the NextAuth schema in Supabase. So expose the NextAuth schema via the serverless API in the API settings by adding NextAuth to the exposed schemas list. So in Supabase, if we go to project settings, and then we click on API, and then we scroll down and we find exposed schemas under the API settings section, and I click on this dropdown, you should see a NextAuth schema to expose. And I'm going to click on that, and then it's automatically saving this here. So I'm just going to give it a sec, and we've successfully saved that in our settings. So now we've exposed that schema, and really, we should be connected to NextAuth now. So if I go to database and I go to tables, I should be able to find NextAuth here somewhere, which I do right here. And currently, you see it has no rows here. But after logging in a user again, I should see a row that contains a user. Now, let me go to, I'm going to actually go to table editor, and I'm going to go to NextAuth, and I'm going to click users. And right now we don't see anything. But if everything's set up correctly, after I log a user in to our NextAuth application, it should show the user up here in Supabase, which is going to suggest that we have successfully connected Supabase to NextAuth. So let's head back to VS Code. I'm going to make sure to run this project, npm run dev, and it is started on localhost 3000 here. So I'm going to head to localhost. I'm going to refresh this to get our running application. And then I'm going to click sign in with GitHub. And then it looks like everything has signed me in here. So now the moment of truth, I do indeed see a new user here within Supabase, code Ryan Solomon, because that is my GitHub name. It has an ID, and it looks like everything is working correctly here. It has our session data here as well. So we have successfully connected Supabase to NextAuth. So Hopefully this video kind of helps you see the process of connecting NextAuth to your database using these database adapters. If you use something other than Supabase, it's still going to be a pretty dang similar process. So thanks for tuning into this, and I'll see you in that next one.